Boys is getting quiet. Go on and get crunk. Head back to Longview, Kelly popping trunk. I ain't even tripping. Riding and I'm sipping. Let me come through 4-4, steady tipping. On that new lap. Watch the trunk crack. Let me sit sideways, CB running back. Maybe AP, maybe AD. I ain't even tripping cause we some athletes. Messing with Smitty in the summertime. He get pissed if we don't make our time. But we gon' get it cause we gotta finish. Nebraska Horn Hustlers, man, we diminish. Put them boys little, paint like a skittle. I ain't even tripping, I ain't never double dribble. Cause I'm a player from the Himalaya. Let me sit sideways, man. Maybe back door, maybe fall off. Sipping codeine cause I gotta kill a cough. Let me sit sideways in the big Benz. OU boys, they my brothers, they my friends.
All right, welcome back to Fullback U, and man, this is going to be an amazing podcast. Just so many memories with this dude. We've already been talking for about an hour, but my brother Wes Sims. Wes, how you feeling, brother?
Great, man. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
No, I appreciate you. You know, as you can see, Wes, we have this beautifully crafted trophy. You had a huge part in that. Just talk about what you think about the trophy.
It's kind of a big deal to be sitting here right in front of it. It's nice, man. We definitely didn't get invited to New York, but it was a pretty good feeling having the guy win it that you'd blocked for all year.
Do you remember where you were when he was announced he won it?
Oh yeah, we were all up in the Santee Lounge watching it.
Yeah.
And then the next year we were there again with him and AD both up there.
Yep. So awesome time. I wanted to take you back. When I first met Wes Sims, Carl Albert used to come down to a basketball tournament down in Weatherford. You remember that?
Oh,
Weatherford used to host the basketball tournament. So I come down there. I think I was freshman or sophomore. And I see this huge dude sitting in some blue jeans over there. And I'm like, man, that fucker's going to OU. That's that line. I said, I'm going to go sit by that dude, just see just how big he is. So I don't know if you remember this, but as a freshman or sophomore, actually, that was the first time I had met you. But just talk about, did you play basketball, other sports? I know you threw shot, but did you play other sports?
No, I played basketball till 8th grade. And then that's when they talked me into shot put and discus. And then in high school, they had indoor track. And I was like, I'm sold on that. I don't want to run up and down this hardwood all day.
Yeah. So then the other memory I have is my sophomore year. We played El Reno at OSU for the state championship right before you guys played Fort Gibson.
Oh, yeah.
And so we walked out as y'all were walking in, and that was pretty cool. And we got to see we got home right in time to watch you guys win it. So just talk about what football was like in Weatherford, people that impacted you. We're going to have Trent Ratterree come in and another Weatherford Eagle come in, so I'm excited about that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's Ratterree's that's a big name out there in Weatherford, man. I played with his brother, and then he was under me, and now his brother's son's the quarterback out there. It's wild how it all stays around. But a lot of kids that grow up out there, they're ready to get out of Weatherford when they grow up, and then some of them stick around. It's about 50-50.
Yeah. That's good. Talk about, they've got a stud there, Ethan Downs. I'm sure you've seen him.
Yeah.
I'm sure you know some of his family, too. I think he's a hell of a player. If you tell us what you think about him, what you think about him going to OU.
Yeah, I got to see him play in the state championship game. I got to go down there, man. He's a big physical kid. He's raw.
Plays everything.
Yeah, he can play any position. I think it's going to be fun just to see where he ends up fitting in at. I mean, he kind of reminds me of not quite as fast as Russell, but I mean about the same, close to the same frame. But he's obviously got a lot more muscle on him than Russell did because Russell was a quarter miler. But I mean, he kind of reminds me of a all-purpose guy like Russell was, because when Russell played with us, he played every position except offensive line, I think. So,
for those that don't know, you're talking about Russell Dennison, great person down at Texas A&M's strength coaching with Smitty, I believe.
Yeah.
Before we get into the Russell, just again that whole household that you lived in college, we're gonna get to that. Let's talk about freshman year. I see this, huge guy, Wes Sims, benches out of this world, squats out of this world, gets to Jerry Schmidt first year. What was that like? And I know you guys were at a time where he was just ruthless. There was no exceptions, no exemptions, no excuses for anything. Board. Let me know what freshman Wes was like.
Oh, every day was like walking into the Thunderdome. I mean, it was special. The first day that I got there, Being an offensive lineman in Weatherford, Oklahoma, you never ran over. I mean, if you got in trouble, you might have had to run 100 yards. But, I mean, you never ran over 100 yards for any reason. It's usually a bunch of short sprints. So the first day I'm there, we go out. We go through what I thought was the whole practice. That was the warm-up is what Schmitty called it. You know, we're out there, and we're doing, everything. We're going through ladders, over hurdles, under hurdles, jumping over stuff. We're in the sandbox, throwing stuff all over the place. I mean, changing direction in the sandbox. I mean, he murdered us for about 45 minutes, and then we were done, and we went to call it up. And I thought we were calling it up. No, we were calling it up to go into the weight room. And then in the weight room, I was all right in the weight room. I held my own in there, but how fast the reps were is what got me.
I was just going to say that.
So it took me a little bit of time to get used to not sitting there and walking around, strutting around, showing everybody how much you got on there. It was take it off so the next guy can go and then put it back on so you can do it again as fast as you can.
Man, you mentioned it. For fans out there, you just the things that you talk about in the warm up. It's just the intensity. It's just high knees and butt kicks, but it's not good. Go back, start over. Help this fast. Don't do it again. Get out. Do this. You know, you're like, oh my God. By the time you're into 5-6 drills, just the intensity, and then that intensity never stops. It doesn't stop in the weight room. It doesn't stop when we come out for abs, come out for conditioning afterwards. You never knew the workout.
You just think about it like this. Every day that you walked into a workout with Schmitty, before you walked into the facility, there's guys literally standing out there just getting their mind right before you walk into this.
Praying.
Literally
Tommy and
praying.
Vince used to pray.
Yeah. I mean, we're asking Jesus for help to get through Schmitty's workout. It's real. It is a real thing. And it was serious. And if you didn't do it right the first time, you had to do it again. And not just that, the whole damn workout again. And not right then, he'd make you come back at 3 o'clock in the middle of June or July and do it then.
Yeah. My saying was Schmitty turned a lot of people into potheads or prayer warriors, but that's another story. So you make it through that. You're redshirting. So scout team, I believe this is Mangino at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Love Mangino on Twitter. We still follow each other, still talk. Let's talk about that. Your relationship with him. He was a tough ass coach, Wes. How'd you make it through it?
He was. Man, honestly, when I first came in, I loved him. And then after the first year, I wasn't a big fan of Mangino. Didn't like the guy. But, he's obviously was successful there. He's successful everywhere he's been. But for me, personally, as an offensive lineman, the technique that he taught us, it was just, I don't know where his technique background was before, but after seeing him trying to take in the Leach O-line, and we're just basically standing straight up in a 2-point stance all day, coming from a high school where we literally ran the wishbone, it kind of drove me nuts.
Yeah. But it's understandable.
And it was night and day difference for me for that first year. Yeah. And I don't know, man. I was kind of fed up with it after my first year, and then that was after my first 2 years, I guess. And then that's when Mangino was leaving, and when I remember the day Gundy came down and told me that, and I was the happiest camper because he knew me and Mangino weren't big fans of each other, and awesome. And I was the happiest guy ever. And actually, I think I had somebody down, a recruit or something that weekend that he told me. It might have been Jeff Levy.
Yeah. Oh man.
And I think awesome. I had Levy, and we had a big O party that night.
I probably was around because I think we might have actually been on our visit, but anyway. For fans that don't know, and you're an unbelievable guy, Wes, what people don't, and this is just me from the outside, I wasn't coached by Mangino. You can comment on it if you want, but what gets to kids is when you see people treated a certain way, that's one thing. But then when you play well and you're busting your ass and you still get treated that way, that's a totally different deal. And so that may be it. I don't know. Hard coaching is one thing, but I should know at the end of the hard coaching that you can come back to my office and I still love you, or I can rip you, but you're still my boy. And I didn't always get that feeling from Coach Hayes. You know, having that my freshman year, I mean, it was you get your fucking ass gets one fucking chance, and we're kicking your ass back to scout team, okay? You're like, damn, I mean, I've been working my ass off, coach. One fucking chance, you know?
And see, it's the same way for us. We all loved Coach Hayes. And we'd work with him for a couple of seconds in practice, you know, when you guys would come over with the tackles and block with us, and that's about it. But man, as far as Mangino, and I mean, hard coaching, I'm a big fan of it. I was raised on it out in Weatherford. Everywhere I've played, I've old school mentalities, hard coaches everywhere I've been. But Mangino wasn't just that. I mean, he always wanted to get personal with people and attack people's personal lives. And when it got to that,
anybody but him.
Yeah,
Anybody
exactly.
but him.
And I mean, I've never seen more grown men cry in my life than when he's attacking their family, you know? And I mean, that, to me, that's what turned me off of him. Now, when Wilson came in, now that was hard coaching that I can respect right there. I mean, he came in and he would chew your ass, but when you did good, he'd take care of you.
Yeah.
And that's a guy that I respected. I got a lot of love for that guy.
Was Woody the anybody but him story? Was it Woody?
That
or
was Will Mathis.
Will. If you want to tell
Will
it,
Mathis.
the story that I heard was you could tell it because you were spring practice and he was trying to get
we were practicing to go to the Orange Bowl, and we didn't have an indoor facility. Well, we had one, but it was the old track indoor facility where you had like a 20-yard turf field and you could practice offense or defense, and that was it. So we just built that big, nice 100-yard outdoor turf field, and it had snowed. And so they pushed snow up against all the way around it to where it's like a 3-foot snowbank around it. And so we're all standing out there basically with sweatpants and hoodies on underneath all of our pads, or the skill players are, and we're all trying to be tough, and we were failing at that. So they had, I think the right guard or left guard, one of the linemen, he blew up a play twice, and Mangino lost it. And he's like, can anybody get out here and play right guard? And so Will Mathis, fifth-year senior, comes jogging out, and he gets about 3 steps on the field, and Mangino just turns around. Oh, no. Anybody but you. And Will Mathis doesn't even break stride. He's just a big, slow U-turn right back to the sideline. And we were all just like, oh, no. Like, no. Like, it was so wrong. And then we're all standing there like, well, I ain't running out there. You're going to send my ass back. So then we just have a stalemate at practice until he decided to pick somebody out that was going to be the next guy. So... yeah, that was an interesting day.
That's awesome. Oh, man, I missed you, Wes. So let's get into some more funny shit. You mentioned hosting Jeff Levy. What OU fans need to know is we owe this guy a lot. This fucker hosted. We need to talk about how many people you hosted. The house you lived in was the party house. I loved it my freshman year. There was a difference, and I'll commend you on this. Wes took care of every Oklahoma kid. And I'll get into this, but through my freshman year, I realized there was a difference between me being an Oklahoma kid and me being a motherfucker that you thought I had a chance. There was a difference between that. There was a difference between you putting your arm around me saying, all right, let's go to this party, and you saying, hey, you gonna fucking play, and you need to knock people out because we need your knockdowns, right?
Yeah.
So
we gotta hit this knockdown total, and your ass is in it.
I mean, knockdowns you got. Okay. Mm-hmm. So before we get into the football talk about the house. You lived with Woody. You lived with Russ. Fun times. Your wife, Chelsea, amazing person. Couldn't just one of the teammate, as far as a teammate's wife, clearly the best person to me. Always been my favorite. Just tell her I said what's up. And
she kept us out of a lot of trouble.
A ton. So just talk about the house.
Oh, the house, man. That was the first house we moved into. If you know, you went through your freshman year, everybody had to live in the dorms, and if you hit the certain GPA at the halfway mark, you could move out in the spring.
Big time.
So, you know, everybody takes the easy classes so they can get a 4-point and get out of there.
That's right.
So that's the deal. So we move into this house, and it was just a few old linemen at first. It was me and Jared Fields, who became known as Woody, and Cliff Takawana lived in there the first year, and Sean Ferrier lived in there the first year. And then They lasted about 9 months or so. I don't know if they made it all the way through that whole first year. And then Russell moved in, and another Weatherford boy, Chase, moved in.
Okay.
And that's when that house took a turn for the worse. And that became known as whenever a recruit came to town, they came to our house.
Absolutely.
And whenever there was a party or whatever, or if you wanted to have a couple drinks on a Thursday and not get seen out in public, you were probably at our house.
That's right.
So it was kind of a CYA deal. It was good because we could all be there and be all right. But, I mean, we met a lot of recruits there, and we brought a lot of dudes in.
Oh, tons. The thing that sticks out about this house, Brad, you're going to love this, is you're going to laugh, but they had... You got to explain who Woody is first. I mean, your first time you meet Woody, you don't even think... You're like, who the fuck? It's the dude. It's like, who is this guy?
He was the dude.
I mean, I meet him. He's sitting on the couch. He's like, "Hey, what's up, buddy?" And I'm like, well, "Hey,
Woody's everybody's best friend / the dude / the guy on the couch from the movie Get Baked."
Yeah,
that was Woody.
Yeah, absolutely. That's perfect way to put it. Sitting on the couch, they used to have over their fireplace, they had a damn dip collection. And Woody had, you remember that? And Woody had made the fucking pyramid of dip. I mean, it had
Copenhagen. It was probably about 5 or 6 foot wide and stood about 4 or 5 foot tall, and it was all Copenhagen.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful.
That was on our mantle.
And Woody, I never saw without a dip, but what a great teammate. Russ, I never really went into his room. He would have probably had me work out and take a dip at the same time.
Yeah, he was already Schmitty Jr. back then.
But fun time. So let's get into my freshman year. So I start playing. I get in on the jumbo package. You started talking about the knockdowns and things like that.
Oh yeah.
We get really good at the I formation. How about that, Wes?
Loved it.
Talk about and we talked about Wilson. Wilson, I actually tweeted him the other day. We're gonna have to show the tweet, but I think I want to get into coaching, and I want to coach under Wilson.
Yeah. I would love to coach under Wilson. I loved his. I mean, everything. I mean, he brought a little bit of everything. He brought the technique. He brought the mentality. A lot of coaches, I think they get hung up on one thing. They either get a little too caught up in the mentality or a little too caught up in the technique or in the play calls and where everybody needs to be. But I think he had a little bit of it all the same way. But having that old school offensive line mentality in him, he loved to pound the rock, and that's what I loved about him, man.
Smart with it, too. Wilson or Sumlin was what I was going to say, but I actually talked to Wilson about it.
Yeah, oh, man, Summy. We love that dude.
Yeah. Could you imagine doing that? What would it be like working for him every day?
Oh, man, I think every day would probably be the best day of your life. I mean, who would you not want to get up and go work with more than old Summy, man? That's a good dude. I mean, very knowledgeable, but just the way he approached everything, very professional, but more like a lot of like family mentality with it. I mean, he was awesome.
Yep. So let's talk about, gosh, I could go into just detail after detail. Wes, tell me what made Wilson special. Why? You mentioned just how he ripped people. I got to see some of that. To me, and this is
Wilson would tear you down.
Anybody.
Man.
Fullback,
Wilson
tight
would
end.
tear you up, but he did it the right way. But, in a way you wouldn't lose respect for somebody tearing you down, but he was relentless. He would come after you and but he did it out of love, man, and it made guys better. Like, man, I still feel bad for Chris Mesner, man. I mean, it was like the opposite of Fat Camp. I mean, we're in there watching film, and he's just pounding, like, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and salted peanut the whole time we're watching film, drinking milk, making him just eat the whole time to gain weight.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's what he needed to do.
So quick-witted, so funny. Damn, I mean, how the fuck you can't reach that guy? You can fucking tie your shoes standing up. Your damn arms are so long. How the fuck can you not reach that guy? I mean, you're just like, oh.
Oh yeah, and he kept it lively in there, man. And every once in a while we'd have some comebacks for him.
Yeah.
But man, he would just rip into you so hard. But he'd let you keep a little light in there too. If it was a good day, and he'd see me or Jamal like taking somebody down to the ground, like, and maybe something that didn't look quite right was going on while we took him down, and he'd be like, "What's going on?" And we'd be like, "You owe me money, coach."
That's
you
right.
know?
Yeah,
Jamal would say it, then we'd all kind of start saying it when he got us caught. So
literally, the only coach that could get away with Colin Davin and Jamal the dark side. I mean, literally. I mean,
that was the dark side.
The dark side.
And they let you know about it.
That's right. Talk about some of the scheme changes that you liked that year. You obviously sound like you like block and power a lot more than you did some of the spread stuff, footwork, all that stuff.
Man, I'll tell you, anytime JD came in the huddle, I had a smile on my face.
That's right. See that?
I wanted the big boys in there. I wanted all the big. I wanted double tight. I wanted the fullback. And as far as I was concerned, you only needed one package, and it was power.
That's right.
And we run that all day, and I mean, we scored just as many touchdowns thrown to the tight end as we did hammering it right up there, just right in there.
A year so my freshman year, we have this great, Jay White, he gets hurt. Nate picks us up. There was a weird deal that our offense, you mentioned we put in the fullback a lot. Lance Donnelly had sprained his ankle at the end of the year. And Hayes, and rightfully so, was trying to get Lance some reps, but he just wasn't ready. Lance, that next year, took the step of taking the starting tight end role over and had an incredible year as starting tight end. One of his catches down at Texas Tech, they had the bobbled catch where he jumps up and catches it and gets caught up. Talk about your and Lance relationship. What an awesome teammate. There's not many funnier people in the world.
Lance is awesome.
Love that dude. Just let us know what LD was like.
Man, LD growing up, man, he was always cool growing up. He was big into baseball for a while, and then we had a crazy good baseball team. Like they went undefeated their senior year. They didn't even lose. So me and Lance kind of backed off of the baseball team. I was never really big into baseball. I played it a little bit, but I'd go play for other smaller towns just kind of for fun. But man, he was always in on that. Then growing up, when we hit 7th and 8th grade, that's when me and Lance kind of figured out
Football.
We had something going on here with football. Yeah. Like we was going to be all right with football. And so like in 8th grade, we were both, kind of head and shoulders above everybody. And we were like, yeah, man, we're going to go play football together. We're like, yeah, we're going to go. Where we're going to go is like, I don't know, let's go somewhere crazy. Let's go to USC. We started talking about that. And then after a year, we were like, nah, we ain't going to USC. And then, so it started going, and then I got offered first, and then Lance got offered. He got offered by OSU first, and he wanted to stay in state. And I don't know how many offers he had. He had a few outside of the state, but I think it was either OU or OSU for Lance. And then as soon as OU offered him, he dropped that commitment and came over. So, But yeah, it was always a good time, man. Lance was always funny. His mom and my mom were always great friends growing up. And his mom was always crazy. I always called her the devil because she would always just say some off-the-wall stuff. And I'd be like, you're the devil, Vicky. You're the devil.
That's awesome. I learned a lot on how to deal with Coach Hayes from Lance. He used to get roasted by him a few times, and it would just be super duper funny. He told him he cut like old people fuck one day. That was because he just fell and laid there. That was amazing. Funniest story, in-game story was one of Lance's comebacks. I don't know I'm sure you heard it, but we had been watching film over Colorado the whole week and Texas Tech, and we were going to try some of the things that Colorado had tried. And their tight end just wasn't blocking Texas Tech's outside linebacker, Mike Smith. He just wasn't getting the job done. And somebody's just roasting this tight end the whole fucking week. He's like, just guys, you got to do better than this, blah, blah, blah. We get to the game, and the first play of the game, fucking Lance goes to try to block Mike Smith. And Mike's like, you're the worst fucking tight end in the Big 12. And Lance would like not even stop and goes, what about the guy from Colorado? Like, so Lance, So,
that's Lance.
Anyway,
man.
But I want to talk about some big games from that year. Really interested to hear your viewpoint on K-State that year. Mike leaves. Just did Mike leaving affect our whole team? Did it affect our offense? Did it affect what did you see from that? What did you see the K-State game? And then we'll talk about LSU.
Man, it was. At the K-State game, I think at first, nobody really knew what it was going to be. Mm-hmm. And so we just didn't think nothing about it and went into that game. And then after we came out of that game, Offense, we got our ass handed to us. Defense, we got our ass handed to us. And we were like, oh. Because, everybody all year told us we were the best team ever.
Right.
We were like, we can't lose K-State.
Right.
Hell, they started the season like 0-3 that year.
They ended up 7-5.
Yeah.
7-6.
Was it 0-4
crazy.
or 0-3?
I don't even remember.
They lost that shitload of game. I was like, well, they're out. I remember saying that to myself at the beginning of the year. They were like 0-3 or 0-4. I was like, well, we ain't got to worry about them. We're going to play Nebraska or Colorado.
Yep.
Or is Iowa State going to have a weird year? What's it going to be?
Right.
So, after that, we came out there and we just, they just handed it to us.
Yep.
And then after that, we still get into the big dance, and then that's kind of like the needle in the arm. That was the shout we needed, We were like, all right, we're gonna do it.
Make up for it.
We're gonna come out here and show everybody we're the best team ever. We had a little blip, and we're still the best team. So we go out there, and man, all of us. I think that's the one game we want back.
Man,
is the LSU one.
Yep.
I love Jay White and all our receivers, but I honestly think if we just didn't even throw it, we would have won that game big.
And I say this a lot, Wes, but people don't believe me. When Mike left, Mike was very big on telling Chuck to run the ball and getting us in the eye and having time for our defense. He helped our offense run the ball. He was very big on that. Without even getting to that, our fans have heard that story over and over, but I want to hear your opinion. We could just fast forward. AD gets there, junior year. You mentioned it earlier. We had this huge offense. We had this spread offense. We're throwing the ball around. Now we got this fucking guy that can make 11 people miss, or doesn't even have to make 11 because we're good enough to block. But shit, if push comes to shove, just talk about his emergence, and then we'll get to the end of the year.
Oh man, I remember like in spring ball, like after he'd signed and everybody kind of started talking about like what he had said and everything, he was going to come in and lead the Big 12 and rush for this many yards and then break the school record and win the Heisman and be out in 3 years. And we're all like, what?
Who? This motherfucker ain't been through one Schmitty workout?
Yeah, it's like, has this guy ever met Schmitty?
Yeah.
So, he shows up and we look at him and we're like,
oh.
Fuck. What is this? What is this? So, I told him all the time, man. You saw his arms.
Yeah.
His forearms. I was like, man, those look like big old dicks. They just ridiculous looking, man. the guy was ridiculous. Just muscles in places you didn't know there was muscles. Huge. And just zero body fat.
None. 12-pack abs.
Yeah, we were like... All right.
Shoulders have shoulders, biceps have biceps. You're like,
we're like, all right, well, that guy's here. And then we look over there and we got, our other boys over there too. And that dude was legit. Tashard Choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was like, what do you do with this guy? He wasn't AD, but he's about as close as you could get.
3rd round pick.
Yeah. So he loses his job in the first couple games to AD. It's between 2 true freshmen. And then he goes to the ACC and leads them in rushing for 3 years and plays in the NFL. He did all right.
No joke. No joke. Let's talk about USC, Wes. You were a guy we've said on this show, and a lot of I feel fucking bad that this has happened. And let me tell you why. A lot of our seniors got blasted for lack of leadership. That could not fucking be further from the truth. Yourself, Jay White, MC, JB. There were a few seniors, and I don't want to call them out, that year. There were more guys that were leaders and doing shit the right way than there were guys worried about fucking limos, agents, and girls and shit like that.
Yeah.
Did we have that? Absolutely. Did it affect us? Probably. What's your thoughts on the USC game? What do you feel? Do you feel like you did everything you could? I feel bad even asking you that. Do you feel like you did everything you could?
Man,
obviously, a game
like
you want back.
Every day, that entire year, every day when we were there working out, going to practice, doing everything. And being on that first team where we won the Orange Bowl against Florida State, it all just felt the same. It felt right, you know, because you've been to bowl games where you're training and it feels right or it doesn't, you know. Well, it all just felt right. It was like, this is the way it's supposed to be. This is OU. We're going into the Orange Bowl. Last time we were here, everything's the same hotel. Everything's, just going the way it's supposed to be going. And everything was great. Everybody was focused. Everything was good. And even, when we came out that game, like, started off ready. And then right after that, that's where it fell apart. And then after that, I mean, it was like Murphy's Law or a snowball effect. All of it rolled up into one. I mean, hell, by the time we got back out there, we're down like 21-7 or whatever it was. You know?
I think we lost our identity that year, Wes. I think when offensively, and you can blame whoever you want, but, we went so many points, we had just... Okay, it was AD's going to make a play. Okay, well, he didn't, so Jay White's going to make a play. Yeah. Well, if it wasn't one of those two, we still had Mark Clayton out there. We still had Brandon Jones, Travis Wilson, and we didn't, I don't feel like, exercise their true abilities later on in the year because we were so focused on it.
Yeah, we got somebody that's going to the league in every position that can make a play for us, and it just wasn't happening.
That's real.
And... man, it was tough.
Yeah, I see your 40-yard dash picture.
Oh.
Talk to me about the combine. Talk to me about your rookie year. And then if I'm so pissed off, I hope you're not going to say that you were in San Diego when we played the Holiday Bowl and I didn't get to see you. I'm so pissed off if that's the case because I would be so mad at myself. How did I let that happen?
Man, I think you just had a lot on your mind there.
That's probably true.
You had a lot going on.
Busy about to score a touchdown. So
right there. There it was.
There
it was. Yeah, because I came up there and watched y'all practice. I caught the end of it and got stuck talking to Coach Long because that was like when he'd went over
San Diego State. Yep.
And so I got to talk to him for way too long when I was trying to get over to talk to you guys. So I didn't get to talk to too many of you at practice, and then at the game I got to come down on the sideline and I got to stand. They were like, "You stand over there by Toby Keith," and I was like, "Okay,
no problem."
Yeah, okay, pull my arm, Yeah. And so Toby was cool, man, and we stood there and talked the whole time, and I was in San Diego with the Chargers, and all those guys wanted to go to the game, and they were like, "Man, we don't want to go down on the sideline. We're pros now. We're going to sit up in the box." I was like, "All right, y'all do that." Yeah. So they go up in the box, and I was like, "These are my boys. I'm going to be down there." And then they're like texting me the whole game. "You standing by Toby Keith? Can we come down there? Can he come up here?" That's all, and I was just like, "Hey, that's y'all's problem, man."
That's awesome. Talk to me about San Diego. You mentioned some of your teammates, obviously Phillip Rivers. They've been so close, Wes. What was that? The weather in San Diego, if our fans have never been to San Diego. It's one of my favorite places.
When I went to San Diego, like the first little OTA that we had, and then they come in and interview all the rookies, and they're like, "So what do you know about San Diego?" I'm like, "Y'all got a big ass zoo." Like, that's all I knew. Their coast is, there's an ocean over there, and they're like, "Oh, what about the weather?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's nice." And they're like, "It's like this every day." It's like, "Mate, no, it's not. No, it's not." And they're like, "Yeah, every day." It was amazing, man. After that, I was like, "This is where every NFL player should go to retire." I was like, "You shouldn't start here. This isn't right." But it was awesome, man. We loved it. All the players there. I got to play with some awesome guys. Drew Brees. Rivers, LaDainian Tomlinson.
They're not bad.
Antonio Gates.
God.
I mean,
4 fucking Hall of Famers.
Yeah, we had like 8 guys make the Pro Bowl that year, and we didn't even make the playoffs.
Wow.
I mean, that was the year we had Sean Merriman on there. We had Jamal Williams.
So State.
Man, we had some beasts. We had a couple old linemen, Nick Hardwick and Chris Dealman. They ended up going. Drew went. LaDainian went. Lorenzo Neal was our fullback. I mean, it was loaded, man.
I watched y'all play. One of our first preseason games was against San Diego, and they were one of the starters of that 3-4 defense. And I can't remember who it was that was the DN next to Merriman, but they would bring Merriman in this DN. I think that's who it was.
Igor,
big
Russian.
Fucking stand over and go like that. So, like the first play, Brad, both of them are sitting right next to each other, and our running backs coach is like, "All right, you young motherfuckers think you're ready for the NFL?" He's like, "Check this shit out." And fucking both those guys come up, and the tackle comes back, and the fullback comes over to block both of them, and they simultaneously, both guys just go back ass over tea kettle, and they're like, "We're gonna put y'all on that protection this week," and we're like, "What the fuck? What? Oh damn!"
Yeah,
we had to block Sean Merriman off the edge. You had to do it every day
in practice. Because Igor was a defensive end on the paper, but in that damn 3-4, he was a fucking 3 technique. So I had to block him every day.
Igor
This giant
Olshansky.
Russian.
How big was he?
He was my size, but no body fat.
Yeah.
So he was just like me, but more tattoos and zero body fat.
I try and tell people about the league.
People ain't supposed to look
at
like
all.
Igor.
He was one of the, like I said, he got a sack and does this, like, beats his chest and, like, stands over everybody and, like, flexes. And you're like, I try and tell people about the league, Wes. I mean, that's one thing. The tackles, height, and then the D ends and D tackles, size. Jamal Williams wasn't that big.
Yeah, Jamal Williams was like 6'2", and he came into the league at like 310 or something. But he was a nose guard. And Jamal played at like 340.
Yeah.
But it said he was like 310. But he knew at 340 he could be a Pro Bowl nose guard. At 310 he's going to get rolled up.
Yeah.
So at 340 he played, and he got fined. There was guys that get fined every day because they just didn't give a shit about their weight.
Yeah.
Well, hell, at the end of the season, he owed him $30,000 in fines, but I think he got like $250,000 for going to the Pro Bowl.
There it is.
Oh, well.
Evens out. Talk to me about the end of your career. Did you stay in San Diego? I can't remember, so forgive me for that, but did you stay in San Diego? Was that your only stop? What made you say fuck it?
I was in San Diego that first year. Then the second year, I was coming along doing really good. That third or fourth preseason game, caught a helmet on the kneecap and broke off a chunk of it. And they wanted to release me after that, but I mean, you know how it is. You can't be released when you're hurt. So
right.
Then they keep me on the roster until I pass a physical, and then I went to Carolina to finish the second year. And Carolina had, like 8 guys on IR or something,
really?
All linemen. I mean, they had signed every lineman in the league that was available. And they wanted to sign me to come back the next year, and I was like, nah, this is not good numbers here.
Yeah.
Then New Orleans called, and I wanted to try to come back closer to home. And I was like, man, Jamal's there. This will be awesome. They were like, yeah, we want you to play left guard. I was like, hell yeah.
Be awesome.
And I got there, and they already had their left guard, and they wanted me to play right guard. And I was like, can't really anchor on that knee anymore.
Yeah, damn.
So I tried that out for a couple of weeks, and I was like, man, I'm done.
Yeah.
I did the whole off season. Everything went great, and then when we got into about the second week of 2-a-days, I realized 5 knee surgeries was enough. It was time to hang it up.
Tell us what Big Wes the Mountain Man is doing nowadays. That's Kevin Wilson's nickname for you, by the way. Big Wes the Mountain Man. Big Wes the Mountain Man.
Oh, yeah.
So positive. Until you feel like that. But tell us what Wes is doing these days. Tell us about your beautiful kids, all that deal.
Oh man, married my lovely wife, the awesome girlfriend from college, Chelsea. She's amazing. Got a little girl, 6, Olivia. She's awesome. She's starting to get into sports, and it's kind of scary because she's built like daddy.
Okay.
Then we got our son Cal, who's 3, and he's just a little kind of tall for his age, but he's real skinny, so I don't know where that kid came from. But yeah, everything's doing good. Working in the oil field, been there for a while. Just trying to make $1 and get by and take care of the family like everybody else.
That's awesome, brother. Well, this has been great. We're going to do a few, about 7 or 8 fan questions, and I'll let you go. And we're going to bring in Trent Ratterree, too, so we can talk a little OU football, too. That'll be great. And some Weatherford. But the most important question we'll start with, at Jeep and Guns Girl want to know, who's your favorite sister? She said you better not get it wrong or she'll slap the shit out of you.
Yeah, I think I know the answer to this one. That'd definitely be her.
Okay.
Yeah, she's got 7 years on me, so she knows some tricks. She knows some things. She got some dirt.
She knows your weak spots. That's I get it. At Lisa Blunt wants to know, so when you got in trouble while in high school, the overpass incident, did you feel any backlash? Talk about how social media impacts kids mentally these days, and how do you think you would have handled all these Twitter idiots?
Oh man, if we would have had Twitter back then, I mean that was like the inception of the internet back then. So it was was a little different.
You've got mail,
but yeah, it was trying to connect to see what email you'd got from whatever, and then junk mail showed up, and then that kind of turned it all off. But yeah, it was crazy. I mean, going from big time all world recruit, and then that happening, and then I was like, man, you just feel like it's the end of the world when you get in trouble. And then you talk to the coaches, and really, I mean, I talked to Coach Stoops on the phone the next day, and he was like, was there any drugs or alcohol involved? And I was like, no, sir. And he's like, well, what's that have to do with us? And I was like, all right.
There it
so
is.
that was the end of that. I did my part, took care of everything that I was supposed to take care of from the court, and moved on.
At J George 64 wants to know, did you have to block Tommy Harris in the Oklahoma drill?
Yeah, the first year he showed up.
That was probably a hassle.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. Me and Tommy get into it. Man, I could hold my own with Tommy in the run blocking, but man, when Tommy was past pro and you're trying to backpedal and he's twice as fast as you are, that's not very fun.
That does not sound fun. At Gable _ IV or 1V, like a 4, the Roman numeral. I'm a math teacher. Most difficult to block in college. Who thoughts on the state of O-line play in Oklahoma and Texas high school? Most fun recruiting story, or he calls it cruitin'. And your favorite food in Norman, or he calls it Nompton. So let's go with most difficult to block in college.
Oh, man, that was always a tough one because a lot of the most difficult guys to block, we played against every day. I mean, Dan Cody and Tommy and Dusty, I mean, it didn't get a whole lot harder than that, but there was a couple of guys. There was I think his name was like Huntley from Kansas State.
Kevin
one
Huntley.
year.
I got him for you, don't worry.
Yeah, he was a big one.
He was huge, 6'8", 275.
Yeah, he reminded me a lot of Julius Peppers because that was the hardest dude I ever had to block because his arm was like 8 foot long. And it's kind of hard to grab a guy when you can't touch him.
He was huge. You blocked Marcus Spears for the damn whole game.
Yeah,
LSU.
Marcus Spears. I think he got one on me when we was trying to pass, but I got the best of him when we were running it. So
there you go. That's all that matters. Thoughts of the state of O-line play, Oklahoma and Texas?
Oh, man.
Not where it used to be.
Yeah, not where it used to be. It seems like there's some size coming out, and I don't know what the deal is, man. I mean, there's so many people that are trying to focus on so many different things. I think the thing that made a lot of us special when we were growing up is the fact that we were so versatile and could play all these other sports. Mm-hmm. I got a lot of my speed and quickness. I played soccer for 13 years. I didn't play football till 7th grade. We didn't have it. And that's the way I'm going to be with my kids. They're not going to be putting pads on when they're 3 or 4. I mean, the most sad thing in the world is seeing a kid that's in 2nd or 3rd grade with a knee brace on.
Oh, no doubt.
I don't want to see that.
No doubt.
I don't even care if they play flag football. I played that in 4th and 5th grade. But, I mean, my kids will put pads on when they get into school, and that's, or my son will if he wants to play, and that's the way that'll be.
Most fun recruiting story, and then favorite food in Norman.
Ooh, most fun recruiting story, man. I think when I came into Norman and we went out, I can't remember where we went, but it was the only official visit that I took because I'd already committed. I went on a bunch of unofficial visits, but that was a blast. We went out, we ate. Frank Romero was my host, and all the recruits are there, and it was a big recruiting weekend. They were getting ready to go to the bowl game. That was the first time they'd been to a bowl game in a couple of years. And we go out and eat, and I order whatever the biggest steak that they had was, because I was like, yeah, I'm going to take advantage of this deal. And then so right before we eat, Coach Gundy gets up, and he's like, all right, you guys good? Anybody want anything else? And I'm like, what, we can get more? And Gundy's like, well, do you want more? I'm like, yeah, I'll eat another one of these steaks if they got it. And they're like, yeah. So everybody had to sit and wait on my ass to eat another steak before we could leave. But I was like, man, I'm taking advantage of this deal.
I gained like 30 pounds on my visit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome. Is this shit on wants to know, when do you think the mentality... Oh, favorite food in Norman?
Favorite food? Oh, man, there's so many. I mean, there's... we've got... like the Tara Mahara... Julio's was awesome. Tulio. I lived next to Tulio, and so I became a big fan of Tulio.
Come on in, Ratterree. Come on, dude.
I mean, we had some.
I didn't want to. Don't worry, you're good. You're good. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Yeah, we had
Shit's
some.
Good. Your family.
Sorry. Yeah,
I know the owner.
all that Mexican food, man. There was some good Mexican food in Norman.
Yeah. Is this shit on wants to know, when do you think the mentality shift occurred to where you don't have as many kids who want to play at OU just because it's OU? And do you think pulling the 2-3 star cat that would die for the school over the 4-5 star cat focused on can still work in today's area?
Man, to me, I don't really think it's changed that much. I mean, you've always had the kids that when they graduated, they wanted to leave. And you've always got the kids that wanted to stay. So, I mean, to me, it doesn't really change things. I mean, maybe they buy in a little more to the SEC or wherever it is they want to go. But if if you grow up in Oklahoma and you're one of those homegrown kids that wants to go here, I don't think that's ever really changed, to be honest with you.
I'm with you. Gerard Pittman 09 wants to know, as a highly regarded lineman and knowing what happened in the 90s, other than being a kid from Oklahoma, what made you choose to play for Bob and OU?
Oh man, honestly I was pretty set. I was either gonna go to like Texas or Nebraska there for a little bit, and then when Bob and them came in, I was like, okay. I was like, because I wanted to go to Norman, but there wasn't a lot of good things happening in Norman right then. And Nebraska was like a factory to send linemen to the NFL, and Texas was coming up. So that was kind of where my thoughts were. And then after I saw him come back and turn things around and just met him compared to the other coaching staff, you could tell a difference. Yeah. And it was like, I'm in on that.
No doubt. At Hemsley 5479 wants to know, what stadium did you like the best to play in and what was the worst fan-wise?
Oh, man, I loved going to the I'm a fan first and foremost, so I love college football. I love going to like Nebraska when they're all just chanting Big Red and it's like intimidating. Like, I love that because you get a lot more out of it if you win that game. But like the worst to me was like going to Kansas State and it's like playing at Union High School and you got kids like stealing your chalkboard off the bench and shit. And I'm like, come on, man. Like, that
was awful.
Right.
That was awful.
I was like, ESPN's here. Come on.
No joke. At One Sooner Nut, last one, wants to know, which is better on recruiting, going to the New Year's Six Bowl or winning and getting roasted like a campfire marshmallow in the CFP?
And it's going. 100% it's going. At the end, after the first game of every team season, what do they want to do? Yeah. They want to go there. You want to go to the show, and if you don't, then hopefully you have something worth watching. But it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, we'll pick up more on that. We're gonna bring in Trent Ratterree and give my buddy Brad Reed a little time to set up the audio and everything. But Wes, I truly want to thank you, brother. Before we take this little commercial break, no sponsors just yet. So if you know anybody, hook me up, man. Especially if they're fullback friendly. Maybe like a plowing construction company. Yeah. Plow through your problems like a Fullback U or something. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe get a buffet on there. Just honorary hogs.
There we go. That's what I'm. See, we need to get Wes in on this deal. We should have been in on this already.
We'll get some food going.
That's what we're talking about. Love you, brother. Appreciate that. My brother Brad Reed's gonna be right back. This is gonna be another great episode of Fullback U. All right, welcome back to a special Fullback U. I got my Weatherford brothers in here. I already met Wes Sims. Introduced to Wes Sims, but Trent Ratterree, how you doing back on the pod, fam?
I'm doing pretty good. Coming off of vacation and Christmas break, and things have been going pretty well. So
sounds like you're being a good boyfriend. Good job. You passed the test. But let's get right to it. And Wes is laughing because he's been through that. Wes, let's get back to it. What the hell happened to us against LSU, brother? Your thoughts first, then Trent.
Oh, man, the thing that killed me was just seeing Jalen running for his life all day, man. We just didn't really have an answer for the pressure they was bringing. And then the other thing that killed me on defense was only seeing 3 guys going after their quarterback. And our best pass rusher wasn't one of them. So, I think there's a time and a place for that, but the personnel's got to be right.
That's real.
And we're just not there yet.
That's real. What do you think, Rat?
I want to build on what Wes is saying here, and I think it was a personnel issue. I think he had certain guys out at specific points, and we saw, our pass rush wasn't as good, and and we, I think in the secondary, I think our man Broyles and with Bookie getting put out with the targeting call. I think it put us in a bad position on defense, and our hands were tied, and I think they did the best they could. But without those personnel at those certain points, at safety and even with Bookie being out, I think it put us in a bad position. And I think when one phase of your team is in a hard position like that, it puts a lot of pressure on everybody. Mm-hmm. And I think we saw that pressure inflicted on the offense where they needed to even overperform, which, against an LSU, an SEC defense, it's going to be tough, And so I think, the outlook going into the game is that we had the strongest defense we've had probably in the last couple of years. But after all things were said and done, and then what happened early in the game, we weren't playing with our strongest defense because we had personnel issues. And so I think that, I think OU did as good as they could, in a really tough situation.
I think the next point, Wes, is we go to, okay, now what? So I think some of our options are this. It's 1, do we have the local talent here? 2, do we have the talent in this conference? 3, do we have the talent in surrounding states or the ability to pull in the elite players? What are your thoughts on all that? Start with in-state, go from out-of-state and further.
Man, I think there's a lot of talent here in state. It's not as plentiful as a lot of other states, but there's a lot of good kids here that can play. I mean, there's guys like me and Trent that grew up here. You grew up here. I mean, there's plenty of guys that are here.
Guy at your high school.
Yeah, there's still guys trickling out of Weatherford. I mean, we've got some homegrown talent. I think the biggest thing is finding a spot for them and developing them. And the same thing with the guys out of state. I mean, I don't really worry about stars. Like we were talking about earlier, like Dan Cody and Teddy Lehman had 3 stars? Jamal had 3, maybe 4 stars. I mean, all those guys came from here in state. And I think if we keep going after those guys, you're going to find some talent like that here. I mean, it's not every year, but there's guys here that have talent that want to play. And, I mean, when you develop a player, you know what can happen when you develop somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I got to see it firsthand with you guys, and I don't know, Rat, you follow it. You've got a nephew that's getting recruited right now. Just talk about the state of the program, just how you feel about the state of the high school football. You see it a lot. Just talk about how you feel.
Yeah, so, I mean, like Wes said, I mean, Wes, someone did ask on Twitter earlier, who was the best college football player to come out of Weatherford. I mean, he's sitting right here next to me.
It's real shit.
I mean,
no problem saying that.
One of the only high school All-Americans to come out of Weatherford, and
draft pick,
and draft pick, and but and I think one thing that my brother used to say to me whenever I was young always stuck with me is there's those guys that come out of high school that they're men already. They have that size, they have that strength, they have, the athletic ability. And then there's the other ones that once they get into a program and develop, they can have a pretty decent impact and become maybe even, and go on and play professionally. And I think that right now in Oklahoma, we maybe don't have all the 5 stars. We do have some really strong players. I mean, look at Marcus Major. I mean, sure. We're about to see what he's got, and I think it's quite a bit. I mean, I've watched those highlights, and I think Ethan Downs. I mean, he proved himself in camps over the summer
Brennan
last
Walker
year.
Can go. The kid from McGinnis.
Brennan Walker, and I mean, we have these guys, and Hunt from CA,
yep.
And but I think that the thing from Oklahoma that a lot of the kids have to offer is that it's the culture of what it is to be in Oklahoma. I think, and work hard. Put your nose to the grindstone and push through adversity and persevere, even in the face of certain defeat, I think, and I think for me, coming out of high school, I was obviously a 0 star. I didn't even have a rivals profile, honestly. And I'm glad I didn't, because the picture they took of me was actually really horrible. So I'm glad that's not, right. I am really glad that's not on the internet.
Yeah.
But all that to say, I think there are a lot of kids, and you mentioned my nephew, and I think he's in that range where, it takes development and the right program. And but I think those values of perseverance and hard work are there. And we may not have the 5 stars or the first-round draft picks, but we definitely have a lot of kids that fly under the radar that if some of these programs would take a chance on them and give them an opportunity, I think they could carry those programs pretty far.
That's real. That's big of you to say. We're all competitors, Rap, but shit, for me to say I'm the greatest Carl Albert Titan, I'll be a fucking idiot. The greatest Carl Albert Titan sitting right over your shoulder, Wes. It's Mike Geddes right there. Blessed to have his autographs. Shout out to my one of our loyal fans, Chris Lambacus. You met him before, but on Twitter, and just he actually sent me that. But again, I mean, just talking about that. And I kind of led that in. There's certain positions, Wes, that we've traditionally had. When I showed up to OU, the Oklahoma guys were linemen, they were tight end, they were D-line, they were front 7, and very rarely corner and safety type. Yeah. Now we're having to use guys all across the board. If you can, first just talk about some of the Oklahoma guys that you played. You mentioned Teddy and them, but just some of the guys, the Corey Kleins of the world, the guys that the Corey Heineke's of the world. I think he was an Oklahoma guy.
Yeah.
For you, I want to hear about the Oklahoma guys that the overachievers, and then certain Southeast, the LSU teams that we played. Is there a comparison between those guys that they had with the guys we had?
I mean, there was, as far as the defensive ends in our conference, there's always been a big difference. We've never had, I don't know, any Big 12 teams ever had a 300-pound defensive end, not when I played.
You cannot underrate that point, Wes. I'm so glad you said that.
No, I mean, they're nowhere near it. I mean, we didn't even see, I mean, about 260 was probably the biggest D end you were going to see in the Big 12 then. But they were more of an outside linebacker or a speed rusher guy. That still plays on Sunday, but we didn't have that 290 or 80 or 300-pound defensive end like a Marcus Spears or the Crowder kid that was I think he was from Texas. He was like 280, and then when we played USC, they had Frosty Rucker. I think he was like 6'6", 280.
One of my Bengals teammates.
Yep, and I mean those were big dudes, and we didn't see those guys. I mean, every once in a while you'd get like the Huntley kid or those other two big kids that Kansas State had back when we were playing.
UCLA had some big ones.
Yeah,
those Ball
UCLA
brothers.
had the Ball boys, and I played with one of Dave Ball out there in San Diego.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And so I mean, we played some big guys, and like Igor, he was I think he was defensive line the year we played. No, we played him our senior year. He was there the year before, so we just missed Igor, but. They still had some good players on that Oregon team that we played.
The Nebraska teams we played had some big. The Rude brothers. I actually talked to one of them. He's inside linebacker coach. They were really, really good, and they had that one D end. I'll think of it. Was now Collison or some Hollinger. Anyway, I'll think of his name. But they had a D end that played. Went like first or second round. That was a huge player. Ratterree, we want to get your thoughts on Oklahoma guys, and then I can't remember if you guys played any Southeastern teams at your time, but. Talk about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, we played in the national championship. We played Florida that year. It was my red shirt freshman year. And I had filled in like the previous 5 games. So I didn't really, and Brody and Jermaine came back, were in full health. And so I didn't really play in the national championship game. And the reason why I'm glad I didn't is they had a whole, I can't remember his first name, but the Dunbar guy. I mean, he's in the NFL still.
Oh,
Carlos Dunbar. Dunlap. Sorry. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, the dude's a monster, He's like 6'8" or 6'7",
And they had Spikes on that team,
Yep.
too?
Yeah,
Spikes was there.
and Spikes, yeah. And so, I mean, there was that guy, but, I mean, the rest of the season, you saw, the Nebraska guys were pretty big, but they were probably 265, 270 maybe at the tops. We played Washington that year. They had a couple guys that were like 270, 275. But, I mean, I think, that was my first year of experience, and then moving on, in Cincinnati that year, they had some pretty big horses at the end. But, moving on, you saw a transition, though, I think. And I think that was the unique part of my time playing, is you started to see, like, the Kansas guys that were big and physical, and now all of a sudden Kansas isn't really getting those guys, and Nebraska's no longer getting those guys. And, and then Texas had, Okafor, and he was big, but he was only 255, really, but he was physical and fast. And so, I mean, I feel like that transition started happening about 10 years ago whenever I was playing.
Yep.
And, you kind of saw those recruits maybe leaving. And even, I think, more than leaving the Big 12, I think you saw them leaving the Pac-10 at the time, Pac-12 now.
Yep.
And so now I think where we're at is it's accumulating in the Southeast. And so now you have guys that formerly would have been probably D tackles, nose guards in the Big 12 playing D end
or O-line
in the SEC, or O-line, playing guard.
Yep.
And they're massive.
O-line.
And they're massive and fast, and and it's just it's I think it's an economy of scale. I mean, people
like that.
People typically want to stay close to home, especially. I mean, we're talking about coming out of high school. These are kids, and so people typically want to stay close to home, and so I think that especially with the conference divide being as close as it is, with Missouri being in the SEC, A&M being in the SEC, Nebraska being in the Big Ten. I think that there's a dynamic there where I think we are losing people just based on these arbitrary lines between conferences.
Adam Carricker was the DN's name from Nebraska. Yeah, you remember him? He went first round, top 15 pick. Wes is okay. Let's just get to the point, because Rat, you're trying to get there, and you are. No, you're great, because what you're saying is this, and I'm going to give you a chance to answer. But okay, Wes, is the talent here? Do we have the ability to create what we need on a national scale here at DND tackle? Are we able to amass the depth at those positions with the kids that we have available in Kansas, in Oklahoma, in Texas these days, in your opinion?
I mean, I think they're there, but you're in the states like Oklahoma and Kansas, you're going to have to get the cream of the crop to have that. They're there, but it's a matter of where they're going, because we'll see a couple of guys leave here to go other places and have great success.
That's
like
a great
Jacobs.
point. That's a great point. The Isaiah Simmons kid that's at Clemson. I didn't think of that, Wes. If you take the top kids from Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas, you should probably be able to build a team that's pretty close. That's a great point.
Yeah, if you can get the ones, and there's other things like Oklahoma, we'd honestly fell behind. Like here with our inner city schools in Oklahoma City, I mean,
Nobody but Millwood.
Yeah, you guys have seen some of the fields and played on some of those fields, and that's why I think a thing like what they're doing with Fields and Futures here in Oklahoma City, I think in the long run that's going to help out, because you're going to get more kids out there, more kids playing, more kids that weren't even playing sports before. There's kids out here in these high schools here in Oklahoma City that have the talent, and they're never going to step on the field.
Absolutely.
Follow it up. What you think, Rat?
I mean, Wes, you took the words right out of my mouth, honestly. I think that, I've been with certain friends of mine, I've been laughed out of circles because I made that argument, is that I think that there is a balance between investment in public education and also what we're seeing with athletic development, because if you can only pay for a certain amount of teachers or a certain amount of resources, if you only have a set resource, then, I mean, extracurriculars kind of fall by the wayside. And I think that athletic development, I mean, sports taught me a lot. And I think we've been through that in the last time I was on the show. And, I mean, it saved my life. It kept me in school, I mean, it was something that was very important in my life. And I think that a lot of kids are missing out on that. And I'm glad to hear Wes say that. I think the other point is, like he said, if we could get the cream of the crop of the region, yes, everything would be great. But what's happening is, like I said, I'm going to bring it back to those conference lines and the way they're drawn now. Yep. I mean, you can go and stay close to home and play in the SEC.
Yep.
You can stay close to home, play in the Pac-12 if you want, or the Big Ten, or
is we're getting some of these guys. Like we got Perkins out of Missouri,
St. Louis, yeah.
But we're not getting enough of them to build depth.
Right.
And that's if you want to build the depth, like the depth we had, where we had guys that were maybe playing 1 year and getting drafted. If you want that kind of depth, I mean, you're going to have to cherry pick this region and outside of the region.
So a point to what you just said, and this is where, and people will probably hate me for saying it because I say it a lot, and I've been saying it for a while about moving to the SEC. To me, one of the advantages, you brought up Ronnie Perkins. The following year after we signed him, they had a 4 or 5 star lineman, went to Missouri. So the big thing is Missouri was in Ronnie's top 5. They're in that kid's top 5. They're solidifying their spot with their local kids. And that's what Texas A&M's doing. And so a lot of people get on to me, and I'm like, just look at Texas A&M. When we were all there, A&M used to be the fucking king of JD committed. OU comes on and takes him. Mm-hmm. Oh, see, somebody committed to A&M? Oh, well, Texas came in and took him. Such and such committed. Oh, well, fucking TCU came. So they were the king of that. Well, now they're going to have back-to-back top 10 classes. Why is that? One, Bama came in and took a lot of top Texas kids. Ohio State too, kind of what you talked about, that conference lines. 2, what you just said is now A&M saying, "Hey kids, you ain't got to leave. You can just stay right here and play LSU and play these guys." And so these kids are sitting around like, "Damn, I really don't have to go to Alabama to fucking play Alabama. Now my we're in Houston right now. The talent pool. Let's talk about that, Wes. The teammates you had from Houston and Dallas. You know, talk about them.
Yeah, it seems like probably at least 50, maybe 60% of all our classes were Dallas and Houston kids, and then everybody else sprinkled in. I mean, it was our class. Our class was really, for Oklahoma kids, it was Oklahoma heavy. I think we had 7 or 8 kids. They got all the top kids in the state except for one, Adam Dorian. He
Duncan
went to
guy.
Texas.
Duncan guy.
Yeah, but it didn't really work out for him in Texas. So maybe it was.
We
was
lost
what
our
it
top
was.
guy to Texas, Brian Pickrell, and never played it down.
Yeah, and if they would have stayed around here, I don't know, maybe having the family around that would have helped them out. But but for the most part, we had a lot of Oklahoma kids in our class, but still, even then, the majority of it was Texas and Houston.
What do you think, Rat?
I want to say in my class, which I came in as a walk-on, but they still kind of lumped me in with these guys. I think it was just me and Ryan Broyles from Oklahoma. And we did have Frank Alexander was one of the top recruits from Baton Rouge, where LSU is. And we had we had a
Big
couple
Don,
other
Don Wayne,
Big Don.
He's gonna come
from
on
Kansas City,
and
we had a couple other guys from Louisiana, Alex Williams, and then we had Corey Wilson from Carrollton. From the Ton.
Just saw him a month ago.
Yeah.
Travis got married, so I went down to his wedding.
Oh, really?
We were down there the same day OU lost to K-State, and Travis was like, "Shit, I caught 2 touchdowns on him, so I ain't tripping shit."
I did catch touchdown on him, and I had the same thought. So I'm glad someone else was thinking
Perfect.
But yeah, we were Texas heavy, I think, and then we had Big Don and some Louisiana guys. But yeah, coming out of 4A football. I played against one Division I guy, and he was from Piedmont, went to TCU, didn't really work out for him at TCU, kind of got in some trouble. But, I played against, I guess 3 years later, Gabe Eichard ended up coming to OU, but he was a sophomore at the time, so it's like, there is an element where I think 6A is pretty strong. I think there's a lot of guys that even fly under the radar that could go D2, could go to all kinds of schools. But, when you get down into the 4As and 3As now, which, we're sitting right here next to, and
a 4A.
Tuttle,
3A.
It was 3A at the time.
Yeah,
So, you don't have Jason Whites in 3A anymore, and it's no knock to them, it's just, I don't know I can't tell you what the cause of it is.
Yeah.
It's just an observation.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's a great point, Rat. We've talked about it on this last pod. Brad gave us credit, and it's funny, people get so mad at us for saying what's real. And Rufus, me and Rufus bring up, and we're talking about how we're all fighting over these 5 stars out of Georgia. And 2 days later, OU has a decommit from a quarterback that's a 5-star out of Georgia, right? It happens. Like, this is what those conference deals, those things are what we are dealing with. As far as locally, Rat, we can count on one hand the names of the quarterbacks in Oklahoma this decade that have went Power 5. Terry Wilson, Thompson. Charles Thompson's son.
Yeah.
We don't have many. Sam was one of, pushing it. We don't have many in Oklahoma.
There was the kid that went to TCU, right?
He signed this year.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's not. Yeah,
A lot of quarterbacks here.
Well, and I think there's a lot to this. Now, you guys are football guys, so we can get into this, and we'll end it with OU and LSU and Clemson talk. But to me, okay, let's start back. You mentioned it. Weatherford, when you were in high school, was probably double tight wishbone.
Oh yeah.
So your tight ends are great blockers. Your fullbacks are good runners. Your tailbacks are your best athlete on the field. Well, now, if you're spread, your tight end, you only got one tight end on the field that's possibly just a pass catcher. Your fullbacks are not even existent. Your tailbacks are probably your wideouts because they're your best athletes now. Your quarterback's probably just the best thrower, or maybe just a guy that would, depending on what you want. Schematically, if you want your O-line on the field more, your best D tackle is going to be your O-line now. It's going to take your big boys. If you're in a 3-man front, you got 1 D lineman now instead of 2 D tackles.
Yeah.
There's just certain things scheme-wise where, people may laugh at other places, but fullbacks and offenses still work. There's still tight ends that block. Every team in college has a tight end that can block a 6 technique. If you cannot block a 6 technique, you're never going to play ever.
Yeah.
But I just think, listen, I don't want to harp on the kid, but we had a safety. I won't even say his name, but we're lacking some of the fundamentals. Wes, you were one of the best base blockers we've had. Why do we not have kids in Oklahoma that can't base block anymore?
So I think, sorry, I don't
No,
mean
go
to
ahead.
interrupt.
Go ahead.
A good starting point is to talk about who your starting quarterback was when you were a senior at Weatherford. When you were a senior at Weatherford, and I can talk about
because we had
where we were at.
the quarterback that we had when I was a senior. Gundy wanted to recruit him. He was legit, but he had signed with OU with baseball, but everybody knew he was going to get drafted. And Colby was good, man. And every time Gundy came to town to talk to me or Lance, he'd be like, "Miller's still gonna play baseball?" I'd be like, "Yeah," and he'd be like, "Okay."
Yeah.
So, he had some tools,
Just
man.
in case.
So
Miller was good.
They had 3 OU guys that came and played football here, and then also one that went
Yeah,
first round.
Yeah, Miller. I think he might have been like second round or something like
top
that
round,
in baseball.
MLB draft.
Yeah, he was
high
a
school.
high draft pick in
either way.
baseball, and then me and Lance went to OU. Russell came the next year, and Chris went to OSU.
Yeah.
And man, we were loaded.
Yeah. It's
For
a
a 4A team.
it's a position just to me where certain states, and you see it with 7-on-7. We're just now coming around to it. We go play some of these Louisiana, Georgia teams. You'll lose by 100.
Oh yeah.
It's there. The quarterback arm talent is there.
Yes, when we were in high school, there was maybe like 1 7-on-7 camp. I think OSU had a 7-on-7 camp.
Now
and that was
everybody
it.
has it.
Yeah.
Let's end it with this. Let's go state of OU's program, and then your thoughts on the national championship game.
State of OU's program, man. I like where it's going. We all know that we got to build up. We got to get some more talent in certain positions and build some depth in others. I think that they showed a good step in that direction. Realistically, I don't think that. Before the season started, we didn't think we were going to be in the hunt for a national championship,
Not at all.
and to get to the playoff was, might have been overachieving for this group. Is having to rebuild an entire offensive line, having a quarterback transfer in. Everything they went through, and then our defense being in the state that it's in currently. So, and a new coach coming in on top of that. So, I think they did all right. I would have loved to have seen them do a little better, have a little better showing, but it is what it is right now.
Thoughts on the Natty?
On the Natty, man, as good as LSU looked, and they're on fire, and they remind me of a team that's going to win it.
I'm the same way.
I still am a firm believer in you're not the champion until you beat the champion that hadn't lost in 2
They're
years.
battle tested, man.
They haven't lost in over 2 years.
You think they'll break our streak? 47?
Nah. Them kids are going to go pro, man.
Yeah. Rat, which thoughts? State of OU program, Natty.
State of OU, I think, with recent news, I think considering what's happening in Dallas, I'm really hoping that Coach Riley doesn't leave and go to Dallas. I think that's going to throw a wrench kind of in everything. I think as far as the players go and the team, I think that, going forward, I think, they're going to come back and, we're losing, Jalen, but we'll see, what Spencer Rattler and Mordecai have to do, and we'll see another quarterback competition, which always kind of invigorates the offense, I think.
Yep.
As far as the defense, I think, we'll see, Perkins will be back, and we're losing Kenneth Murray, which has been one of my favorite players to watch this season and even past couple seasons. But there's a lot of work to do. They, like Wes said, I think that getting into the college football playoff was fantastic for them. When you lose your whole offensive line to the NFL draft, that's a pretty big deal. And it's hard to come back from that, and they did. I mean, they produced the offensive line arguably produced a runner-up in the Heisman. So, I mean, I think that there's not really a lot of gaps there. I think it's just maintaining personnel on the defense. And I think what Coach Grinch is doing with the defense with kind of spelling people and instead of playing one person 55 plays, playing them, 30 here, 35 there, I think that's a good model. And I hope he continues to do that. But I think, I'm very optimistic going forward. As far as the Natty goes, I mean, I'm going to try to watch it. But, I think LSU, if they play anywhere close to what they played against us with their hair on fire.
Sure. In New Orleans.
Yeah.
Regardless,
Clemson's gonna
but
have to
and it's basically a
you're
home
right.
game for them too.
You're
yeah.
right.
So I mean, I don't always agree with their attitude, and actually, frankly, I'm not a big fan of what seems like the team culture there. But I think that ultimately, they'll probably pull it out.
Yeah.
I mean, they're very physical. You just look at them. I mean, people made comparisons to that USC team, and they just look. It's ridiculous.
No doubt.
Yeah. So I think LSU pulls it
So
out.
I mean, even the players on their team that aren't considered to be the top tier, the top tier players are first round draft picks. So those guys are still great players, and they don't look like they get overshadowed by their own team.
Yeah. So I mean, it's going to be a great game.
Oh, no doubt.
way, though. Yeah.
I think the big thing, and there's nothing against you, but I just think people underestimate that national championship atmosphere and that Trevor Lawrence has already been through it. And if there is somebody I just think that, shit, man, like you said, they're battle tested. If you got an experienced quarterback. But I also understand your side, man. Dude, LSU, dude, the thing that Burrow does that's so impressive, and this is why I knew we weren't going to win, and I said it on the podcast, and I didn't say that he was going to score 7 touchdowns in the first half, but I said that our DBs didn't make plays on the ball well enough, and that he throws the ball and just gives his receivers a chance, and what happened? 7 touchdowns in the first half.
I'll tell you what, Burrow reminded me so much. He looked like Baker in Baker's senior year. Where you couldn't get him down. He'd scramble and he'd throw it, and he'd always hit somebody every time.
He was always on the mark.
It looked just like that.
I was with Carson Palmer for a year, and his mannerisms, his ball, the spin on it, they look identical a lot of the time. The only time they don't look identical is when they're throwing a deep ball, because Carson was so fucking tall. He would just launch that damn thing like just a.
I don't know if for a fact, but
unbelievable.
I would be willing to bet they're all baseball players.
I would guess too.
It's like you can see a baseball player the way they throw a football. I mean, it's that tight spin. It's like it's quick release. I mean, but yeah, I mean, I think that I don't know. We'll see.
To sum it up, you got a political ending you want to throw? Vote Rat 2020? What do you got?
No, I don't. Not yet.
Okay.
But one thing I did come ready. So
Let's hear it.
That question about the Weatherford football, who's the best Weatherford football player? I did a little research on Weatherford.
Shit. I'm excited.
Went to the Weatherford, Oklahoma Wikipedia, clicked on notable people. There was 2 people that I took note of that were important for this podcast. One is sitting right here.
Right.
Wes Sims was one of 5 of the notable people on our Weatherford, Oklahoma Wikipedia.
Tom Stafford.
The other one was Tom Stafford.
Yeah, gotta have Thomas P. Stafford.
One thing that I think a lot of people don't know about Tom Stafford.
Oh, I like
So
this.
he went to the Naval Academy,
Okay.
right? Went on to be an astronaut.
Okay.
Flew multiple missions. Is currently considered basically an expert on navigating the moon, things like that. But what they don't know is he actually was offered a scholarship to play football at the University of Oklahoma coming out of Weatherford in 1948. And he turned it down to go to the Naval Academy, which he wanted to play football there, but he suffered a knee injury, I guess, and wasn't able to play. So he just, he just went on to become an astronaut.
According to my, I'm sorry to bust your bubble, Trent, but according to my 7th graders, we've never been to the moon. So I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. Even
man.
Brad laughed at that.
We'll have to try to get Thomas P. to visit. Yeah,
You can talk to
He's
Major
been
Tom
there.
about that.
yeah. He's
And
been
it's
there.
also been argued that in the song, when they were saying this is ground control to Major Tom, that was Major Thomas P. Stafford.
Okay.
Little known fact.
Yeah.
Shit, man. That's
Weatherford
podcast
pride
growth.
runs deep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we go deep. These roots are deep.
That's awesome. Well, I'm gonna edit that part out, and especially me cussing, and show my 7th grade kids so they can definitely get some knowledge. But man, thank you to my bros, man. Congrats to you guys, high school, on everything, and Ethan Downs. Best of luck to you, brother. Big time, Wes. We got to do this again, man. We can make it 15 years again since we see each other. And it'll be part 3 for you, so I'm expecting big things again. Yeah. So I got to just say thank you guys, man. Much love, and this could be another great episode of Fullback U.
Thanks, man.
Thanks,
no problem,